Oh, why, hello again there, YouTube. So, there are a lot of remakes coming our way. Friends. Sex and the City is coming back, but without the best character in Sex and the City, so... And we have some new information about the Queer as Folk remake.
What are you gonna do? You'll have to tell her about Stuart.
I can't.
You'll have to. She knows.
I can't.
You'll have to.
I can do what I like. I'm Mozart. I'm fucking Mozart.
So, difference between Queer as Folk and all the other remakes that I just mentioned, including, I don't know, Will and Grace, The L Word. Those were like bringing the show back, bringing it back with like the same characters and the same actors that are playing the same characters. But I believe that with Queer as Folk, they're going to reimagine the show and have different characters that are based off of the original. Hey guys, it's me from the future. I was editing this video and I realized that I wasn't completely clear. So some of you guys might be thinking, oh wait, there already was a remake of Queer as Folk 20 years ago. That was set in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it already had its own new characters that were based off of the old characters, and it had already like reimagined the original storyline. So is this different from that? Is this a continuation of that? From what I've read in the articles, the Queer as Folk remakes will be reimaginings of Queer as Folk that are based off of the British original show. That is my understanding based off of what I read, because the articles use the term like reimagining, not continuation. Also, I made another video a year and a half ago about there being two possible upcoming Queer as Folk remakes, a second American version and a French version. I've heard no new news about the French version, so I don't know if they're still going through with that, whatever. So I'm not talking about the French version in this video. I'm talking about the American version, which is going to come to Peacock, your least favorite streaming service, according to that poll that you guys took a few months ago, where 0% of you like Peacock the best. But I looked it up, and actually the first thing that I looked up in regards to Peacock was, do they allow nudity on Peacock? And then I read that Brave New World is on Peacock and there's orgy scenes, so Queer as Folk will fit right in. Also, another piece of new news about Queer as Folk, the upcoming American Queer as Folk remake, is that it's going to be set in New Orleans. As soon as I heard that, I looked up two pieces of information very important about New Orleans. One, what are the demographics of New Orleans? Two, what is the age of consent in Louisiana?
Tell you what about him? See? Tall blonde one. He's up for anything. I'll put in a good word for you. How old is he? 15. 15? It's a bit revolting, isn't it? Absolutely.
Okay, so about the first one. So demographics. So the original Queer as Folk aired in 1999. It was set in Manchester, England. And the demographics for Manchester, England look like this. Therefore, the show looks like this. Like we had one black friend, but like only 1% of the population was black. So that makes sense for a show set in Manchester. It makes less sense for a show set in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which ran for 5 seasons and only had just the one black friend. Demographics for Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania look like this. 2/3 white, a quarter were black back in the 2000s, and the show did not reflect that. However, I do understand that they had difficulties with casting. They had difficulties in finding people who were willing to audition for the show, so I'm not like super mad at them. I think that things are a bit better now, and the demographics for New Orleans is over 50% black, so hopefully we won't just have the one black friend off to the side. So the original Queer as Folk was set in 1999 in Manchester, followed a group of gay friends who were, very much invested in the nightlife. They went out to the gay clubs every night to pick up men, and they had other gay friends, which was very unusual at the time. You usually didn't see a lot of shows with gay characters at the time, but especially you didn't see a lot of shows where the gay characters weren't completely isolated, like they actually were part of a larger community. So that's something that I really liked about Queer as Folk.
It's like my mother. She'd kill me if she knew I was here. Like watching Emmerdale, and Zoe Tate was having that lesbian wedding, and my mother stood up and turned it off.
That's not homophobia, that's good taste.
We did follow a bunch of gay white men, and some lesbians.
It's her. That's Romy. She's the mother, and she's a lesbian.
Some lesbians who are also mothers.
She's a lesbian and she's a mother.
They're lesbian mothers.
She's a lesbian mother. That's her.
Anyway, I'm sure that there are people who weren't interested in auditioning for the show because, like, oh my god, I don't want to play a gay character. I don't want to film a bunch of gay sex scenes. And, you know, like, maybe some actors were very nervous about that. The show was it was controversial. At the time, I think it was also revolutionary, not just to have, like, multiple gay characters in a show and not just, like, show them having a sex life and all of that, but, like, having flawed characters. I think it's very important when it comes to minority representation. I think that when people talk about representation, then they expect for the characters to be perfect and not to have any significant character flaws and to be likable all the time. And Queer as Folk challenge that.
Everyone's having a go at me. Listen, I have to spend every single day living with me, so I know for a fact I'm lovely. I'm completely lovely. Danny, how's things? Not so bad. How's Peter? Still dead. Oh yeah, shit. Sorry, forgot. Whoops.
I feel like they went out of their way to make people uncomfortable. Like there was more shock value. I think like it went too far over the line where it was just unnecessary. Like why? Why would you do that other than shock value? And what does that shock value actually bring to the show?
9, 9. One more 9 and I'll have the police on them. Bring them here. Tell them what you did to a 15-year-old boy. Good point.
You know, like this, for example.
How old are you? 16. How old are you, really? 15.
Guys, if I picked up a 15-year-old and I did stuff with them and then I found out after the fact that they were 15, I would not react like this. So one of the characters that we follow is Stuart Alan Jones.
How old are you? How old do you think I am? 33. Fuck off. What? I'm 29. Not for much longer. 6 months to go, then it's straight into the bladder control clinic. Then I better go for a piss while I still can.
He's 29 years old. He's been around the block a few times. In fact, he wants to move to London because he's pretty much slept with every other gay man in Manchester and he is bored as shit. He always goes out. The nightlife isn't exciting because he's been around for just too long and he feels like he's seen everything. He's done everything. He's done everyone. But then he sees some new guy who's going to the gay clubs for the first time. It is 15-year-old Nathan.
Got somewhere to go?
No.
When I come back to mine.
I was 15. I did it the first time I went out. I'm quite proud of that. I'm dead proud of that, my first time out.
To be fair, I guess, Stuart didn't know that Nathan was 15 years old when he took Nathan home. But also, on the other side of that, he didn't ask the guy how old he was.
I'll have to go anyway. I've got college. College? Or school? Sixth form college.
He found out later because Nathan is like really bad at lying.
How old are you? 18.
Like really bad.
What year were you born? 1981. Bollocks, you had to think about it. No one has to think about what year they were born.
To reiterate something that I said a year and a half ago, still true. This shit is illegal. It is illegal. Oh my goodness. It's not just like, oh, it's illegal and he doesn't give a shit. He does not give a shit about just announcing to every one of his friends, to everybody that he knows, oh yeah, hey, this is the 15-year-old that I just finished fucking. How are you? What's your name again?
Aren't you going to introduce us?
What's your name again?
Nathan.
Oh, you've met. Lisa, this is Nathan. Lisa was on the phone when Nathan shot his load all over me.
Oh, for God's sake.
Well, he did. He's 15, aren't you, Nate?
So you both had a child on the same night?
Lisa does not approve. She just doesn't approve of Stuart in general. Same.
You've got Canada Dry, Stuart. There's a bottle by the fridge. There is. All right, I'll go the offie.
Did he spend a single second with his own son? He left him with you, didn't he?
I've got to go.
Thanks, Vince. You're more of a father than he is.
Oh, right, by the way, he has a baby.
Now, Stuart, don't panic. It's Romy. I'm in hospital. The contractions have started. It's not a false alarm.
Fuck, I've got a baby.
But anyway, everybody knows Stuart's friends are annoyed by this situation, but more so because Nathan is so young and therefore so clingy. Like, he doesn't just want a one-night stand. He wants to follow Stuart around everywhere and he wants to be like his proper boyfriend. And Stuart's like, hell no, like, I already slept with you. It's out with the old, in with the new, you know? Like, I need to go on this prehistoric grinder and find somebody else. Yeah, so the friends are annoyed that he's very clingy.
You fucked him, so it's your responsibility. Don't you dare go swanning off.
You know, like, you shouldn't have slept with somebody that young because young people are very clingy, but it's not like you shouldn't have slept with somebody that young because it's illegal. It's wrong. He's underage. From what I remember, the only person who was like, what the fuck, this is illegal, how dare you, blah, 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 was Nathan's dad.
What do you think you're doing? Shit. It's my dad!
Nathan, get in that house. He's 15 years old. He's 15. That boy is 15, so. The Jeep's only 6 months old and you've still buggered it.
And we're not supposed to like Nathan's dad because he's a huge homophobe.
It's Helen I'm worried about. She's 10 years old. She's a child. I don't want a head filled with notions.
Like what?
As far as Helen's concerned, the anus is for shit. Got that?
Anyway, like I said, the original Queer as Folk, which is from England, is followed up very quickly by an American remake. I'm glad that with the American remake, they aged this character up a little bit.
I can't go home now. My parents think I'm staying at a friend's.
You live with your parents?
Well, I'm still in school. I mean, college.
What year are you in?
Junior? Sophomore. Between my junior and sophomore year.
How old are you?
21.
What year were you born?
1979.
Bullshit. You had to think before you answered that. How old are you really?
Justin is the character that corresponds with Nathan. He was right at the age of consent in Pennsylvania, and that's the age of consent in Louisiana as well. I do hope that they make him older than 17. I don't think that this character necessarily needs to be in high school. If you want to explore the like intergenerational differences between being a gay millennial and being a gay Zoomer, you can do that. And there are Zoomers who are in college now, and if you want him to still live with his parents, he can do that too, because some people still live with their parents when they're like out of high school because it's expensive to move out, especially with Corona, and a lot of people lost their jobs and shit, and so he doesn't need to be super young. But the American version that already existed, that aired 20 years ago, this relationship was not illegal. That's an improvement right there.
19. 18.
Well, what is this, a missile launch?
17.
What is with kids today?
We just want to get laid like everybody else.
And then as soon as Brian, that's Stuart's American counterpart, hears that Justin is 17, he's like, oh, that's a little young. But then he says that he was 14 his first time.
Kind of young, aren't you? Well, I was 14 my first time.
That's really young.
I love how Justin is like, okay, wait a minute. I'm in high school. I'm a high school student who just went to a gay club to find an older man to go home with. But 14? That's so young. And I'm like, bitch, 14 is young, but it's not that much younger than 15. You know what I'm saying?
With my gym teacher.
I bet he was some old perv.
That old perv was probably the same age that I am now.
So basically you were calling the original version of this relationship creepy, right?
First time I copped off, I was in school. Mr. Daniels, PE.
I think that this is interesting too because Stuart has a very similar backstory, except he was 12 and not 14 years old.
Next thing, he's stark bollock naked. Fantastic. I'm still talking about like a twat. And he gets in the shower, pulls the curtain, half pulls it. Now, I'm 12 years old. I'm thinking, aye. So I got in the shower with all my clothes on. I did.
And another big difference is that he's not telling this story to another character. He's telling this story straight to the camera. Whereas in the American version, Ryan is telling this story to Justin. And Justin is completely creeped out by this.
I walked right into the showers with all my clothes on.
No.
Got down on my knees and sucked him off right there.
He let you?
Let me. He loved it.
And both Stuart and Brian were telling this story as if it was no big deal. I do hope that if they keep this in with the new remake, I hope that they expand on this story more. I don't want to just hear this story and then never return to it again. I think it's especially interesting the way that Stuart or Brian tells this story, like how there's no shame, because when you think of victims of sexual assault, sexual molestation, rape, whatever, you think that the victims would experience a lot of shame and they would be very embarrassed to tell that story, but they tell this story with like a sense of pride. That's another side of it that I don't think that we explore that often, where they may feel a sense of pride for having had sex earlier, knowing what sex is like at such an early age, whereas all the other kids that are their age, they don't know anything about this adult thing. I'm so grown up, you know, that sort of thing. And Nathan is kind of like that too. After Nathan sleeps with Stuart, he's like, all these other kids that are my age that I go to school with, those people are just kids. I'm grown now.
They're just kids. They're just talking. I'm doing it. I'm really doing it. I'm doing it.
I don't know. I think that that could be explored in an interesting way, but I also can see how the remake could bring about some of the problems that were in the original. I'll say that the director of the remake was not involved in creating the original or the American version from 20 years ago. He's only 32 years old. He was a fan of the show when he was young and he watched it in secret, and now he wants to bring it back, and you know, that's cool. And hopefully he does bring it back, but he addresses some of the issues that were in the original. I think that there's a lot you can do with Queer as Folk. I hope that you like this video. Please comment down below, what do you think? Are you excited about possible Queer as Folk reboot, remake? Because I don't know. I think it could be exciting. I don't want you to think that this is just a video of me criticizing the original. I mean, the original, like, what the fuck? What was your thought process in making this guy 15? Like, I'm not okay with that. I'm not cool with that. But even in rewatching the show for the purposes of this video, I did feel a lot of nostalgic feelings. I started watching Queer as Folk when I was 16 years old, and you know, as a little baby, I was aware that it was problematic, but you know, as a grown up now, I'm like, girl, what was that? But anyway, I'm saying that even in the original and in the American version, the Pittsburgh American version, there's a lot going for it that, you know, it could be exciting to see that stuff again if it's done well And yeah, that's the point of this. It's not to say, oh, queer as folk, gross, I don't want that anymore. By all means, do remake it if you're going to make it better and if you're going to address the problems that the original had. I would be so excited for that. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've ever seen Queer as Folk, what you guys think of that. Or if you don't care about Queer as Folk, are there any other remakes that you're excited about? Or maybe you're not excited about, but you're like willing to check it out. But be careful with your comments because some of the comments on my Josh Duggar video were a little bit too spicy for YouTube and they got deleted. And it was really annoying because like people tend to jump to the conclusion that I was filtering comments and deleting comments, which no, I wasn't doing that. Okay.